The Council made one demand: leave Earth's children alone. Looking back now, I should have listened more carefully. The warning signs were there, clear as the twin moons of my homeworld. I am Admiral Kraz Newer of the Galactic Research Fleet, and this is my testimony of how we made the greatest mistake in our civilization's history. The Council chamber hung suspended in space, a marvel of engineering that reflected the combined technological might of 300 species. Through the transparent dome above, the stars twinkled mockingly, as if they knew what was about to unfold. I stood at attention, my ceremonial armor gleaming under the soft blue lights, while representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what would become the most significant meeting of our era. The Council recognizes Ambassador Nathan Parker of Earth, announced High Chancellor Zara, her luminescent tendrils pulsing with formal authority. The humans stepped forward. Even now, I remember being struck by how plain they looked: no bioluminescence, no extra appendages, just 2 arms, 2 legs, and an expression that could freeze a solar wind. He was shorter than most species present, yet somehow managed to fill the entire chamber with his presence. Honorable members of the Council, Parker began, his voice carrying the weight of his entire species. We understand your interest in Earth. We welcome scientific exchange, cultural dialogue, and trade. But there is one non-negotiable condition. He paused, making eye contact with each Council member. Earth's children are off limits. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Next to me, Science Director Lumi scoffed, her scales shifting from blue to orange in amusement. Their protectiveness of their young is fascinating, but hardly practical for scientific advancement, she whispered. Chancellor Zara raised all 4 hands for silence. Ambassador Parker, surely you understand that studying the development of various species is crucial for our shared knowledge. What part of non-negotiable was unclear. Chancellor Parker's smile never reached his eyes. We're not asking, we're telling. Earth's children are to be left alone. No studies, no observations, no contact. The consequences of ignoring this warning will be significant. Are you threatening? The Council demanded Representative Crocs, his metallic exoskeleton clanking as he rose from his seat. Parker shook his head, that same cold smile still in place. Not at all. I'm trying to protect you. There are things about Earth's children that you don't understand. Things that should remain misunderstood for everyone's safety. I remember laughing then. The arrogance of it. A species barely able to reach their own moon, daring to dictate terms to the greatest scientific minds in the galaxy. Your warning is noted, Ambassador Chancellor Zara declared diplomatically. The Council will take it under advisement. As Parker left the chamber, he stopped beside me. Admiral Kraz Newer, he said, somehow knowing who I was, I hope we never meet again. It would mean something has gone very wrong. I should have heard the genuine concern in his voice, should have recognized the warning for what it was. Instead, I saw only an opportunity to make history. After all, how dangerous could human children possibly be? I would learn the answer to that question all too soon, and the price of that knowledge would shake our civilization to its core. The research vessel Seeker glided silently through Earth's outer atmosphere, its cloaking systems functioning perfectly, or so we thought. Dr. Pack stood at the observation deck, her antenna twitching with barely contained excitement as she reviewed the mission parameters one final time. Admiral Kraz Newer, the stealth systems are operating at optimal efficiency, she reported, her voice carrying that insufferable tone of scientific superiority. The humans will never know we're here. I nodded, watching the clouds part beneath our ship. Proceed with caution, Doctor. Remember what happened to the Xerxian expedition last cycle. Please, Admiral, she waved 3 of her appendages dismissively. The Xerxians were careless. We are the finest research team in the galaxy. Our observation protocols are flawless. The target was a place the humans called a playground located in a small settlement named Millbrook. Our preliminary scans showed minimal security, making it perfect for our first close-range study of human offspring. Dr. Pax had selected a team of 12 researchers, each specialized in different aspects of xenobiology. Look at them, Dr. Pax whispered, adjusting her viewing scope. Such primitive play behaviors. Fascinating how they simulate complex social scenarios with minimal tools. Below us, 30 human children engaged in various activities. Some hung from metal bars, others propelled themselves through the air on suspended seats attached to chains. The data streams flowing across our monitors seemed ordinary enough. Begin tissue sampling, Dr. Pax ordered. Activate the remote collection drones. That's when everything started going wrong. The first sign was subtle. One of the children, a small female with red hair, stopped mid-swing and looked directly up at our cloaked ship. Impossible, I thought. Our technology was beyond human detection capabilities. Dr. Pax, one of the junior researchers, called out, "I'm getting strange readings from the electromagnetic spectrum analyzers." "Ignore it," she commanded. "Launch the collection drones." 3 microscopic sampling units descended from our ship. They were designed to collect skin cells, hair samples, and environmental data without any noticeable impact. We'd used them successfully on thousands of species. The red-haired child pointed at the sky and shouted something. Within seconds, every child on the playground stopped moving. They all looked up. Admiral, our security officer's voice crackled through the comm. "We're detecting an anomaly in the ship's power grid." "What kind of anomaly?" Before he could answer, the lights flickered. Dr. Pax's antenna went rigid. "That's not possible," she muttered, frantically checking her instruments. "The children, their brain wave patterns are synchronizing." The ship shuddered. Outside, the air itself seemed to ripple, like heat waves over desert sand. Our cloaking field began to fail, revealing sections of the Seeker's hull. "Dr. Pax," I barked, "abort the mission. Recall the drones." "But the data. We're seeing something unprecedented. Their neural patterns are creating some kind of..." The red-haired child raised her hand toward our ship. The others followed suit. Suddenly, every piece of equipment in our laboratory began to malfunction simultaneously. Screens cracked, instruments exploded, and our gravity generators went haywire. "Get us out of here," I ordered the helm control. "The engines aren't responding, Admiral. Nothing's responding." Through the chaos, I heard Dr. Pax laughing hysterically. "Don't you see? They're not just children. They're all connected somehow. They're..." The ship's hull groaned like a dying beast. Below us, the children continued their silent vigil, hands raised to the sky, faces expressionless. Then the red-haired child smiled. "That smile will haunt my nightmares until the day I die." Everything electronic on the ship died simultaneously. We hung in the air for one terrible moment before gravity reasserted itself. The Seeker plummeted toward Earth. "Emergency protocols," I shouted. "Backup power. Anything." Nothing responded. We fell like a stone, the ground rushing up to meet us. At the last possible second, our descent slowed as if we were caught in an invisible net. The ship settled gently onto the playground's empty field. Empty. The children had vanished. We sat in stunned silence, emergency lights casting an eerie red glow throughout the ship. Dr. Pax's antenna hung limp as she stared at her ruined equipment. Admiral, our communications officer, called out weakly, "We're receiving a transmission. From the surface." "Put it through." A child's voice filled the bridge, but it seemed to echo with hundreds of others speaking in perfect unison. "We told you to leave us alone." This was a warning. There won't be a second one. The message ended. Moments later, our systems began rebooting themselves as if nothing had happened. Dr. Pax's instruments showed no trace of the extraordinary readings we'd recorded. Even the security footage was gone, replaced by static. "Admiral," Dr. Pax said quietly, her scientific arrogance finally shattered, "what do we do now?" I stared at the empty playground through our view screen, remembering Ambassador Parker's warning. "We run," I replied. "We run as fast and as far as we can." But I already knew it was too late. We'd ignored the warning, and now we would face the consequences. The children of Earth had revealed just a fraction of their power, and I had a terrible feeling we were about to discover much, much more. General Yak stood before the emergency council, his reinforced combat suit gleaming under the harsh lights. His reputation for ruthless efficiency had earned him the nickname the problem solver across 3 galactic sectors. Right now, he was looking at me like I was the problem that needed solving. Let me understand this correctly. Admiral, he rumbled, mandibles clicking in barely contained rage. Your research vessel was disabled by children. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. The burns from our emergency evacuation still hadn't healed. Not exactly disabled, General. More like completely overwhelmed by forces we cannot explain. Forces you cannot explain, he repeated mockingly. The mighty Admiral Krasnur, brought low by human spawn. Do you know what this incident has cost us? 3 other research stations near Earth have gone dark. 2 supply ships vanished without a trace. The humans are making us look like amateurs. Chancellor Zara's hologram flickered as she joined the discussion. General Yax, what do you propose? The general's faceplates shifted into what passed for a smile in his species. A decisive show of force. We have a fleet of 50 warships ready to deploy. We'll establish a perimeter around their planet, demonstrate our superior firepower, and demand they turn over their children for proper study. No more games, no more mysteries. The humans will resist, I warned. Let them try, Yax sneered. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. What are they going to do? Throw rocks at our shields. 48 hours later, I watched from the command bridge of the dreadnought Invincible as our fleet took position around Earth. 50 of the most advanced warships ever constructed, crewed by the finest warriors in the galaxy. General Yax stood proud, directing the operation with his usual precision. Attention Earth authorities, his message boomed across all frequencies. Your planet is now under quarantine. Surrender your young for scientific evaluation or face the consequences of defiance. The response came not from Earth's military command, but from thousands of children's voices speaking in perfect unison through our communication systems. No. General Yax laughed. Adorable. Target their major military installations. Let's show them what real power looks like. The first plasma cannon fired. The energy beam never reached Earth's surface. Instead, it stopped mid-air, twisted like a pretzel, and shot back at us. 3 ships exploded before we could even raise shields. Impossible, Yax roared. Launch the autonomous combat drones. 10,000 combat drones deployed from our ships, their artificial intelligence programmed for perfect coordination. They made it halfway to Earth's atmosphere before stopping dead in space. Then, to our horror, they turned around. General, our tactical officer shouted, the drones, they're singing. Through every speaker on every ship, 10,000 mechanical voices joined the children's chorus in a haunting lullaby. Crew members began falling asleep at their posts. Those who resisted reported seeing their own childhood memories playing before their eyes. Shut it off, Yax commanded. Shut everything off. But it was too late. Ship after ship lost power, their crews trapped in a dreamlike state. On our main screen, a young boy appeared. He couldn't have been more than 10 Earth years old, but his eyes held the wisdom of millennia. We tried to warn you, he said softly. We asked you nicely to leave us alone. Now we have to show you why. The space around our fleet began to warp and twist. Stars shifted position, reality itself seemed to bend. General Yax fired his personal weapon at the screen, but the energy blast curved around and struck his own armor, leaving him sprawled on the deck. What are you? I asked the boy. He smiled, that same terrible smile I'd seen on the playground. We are humanity's greatest achievement and their most closely guarded secret. We are the bridge between what is and what could be. We are the dreams of an entire species given form. Across the fleet, ships began disappearing one by one, not through destruction, but simply ceasing to exist. Their crews would later be found on various planets across the galaxy, unharmed but with no memory of how they got there. The universe is so much stranger than you imagine, the boy continued. Humanity learned to harness that strangeness through their children, born with one foot in reality and one in dreams. We are not your test subjects. We are the guardians of human potential. General Yax staggered to his feet. You can't do this. We are the supreme military force in the galaxy. The boy's expression turned sad. Your weapons mean nothing. Your technology means nothing. You're still playing with toys while we've learned to play with the fabric of reality itself. The Invincible's hull began to dissolve, transforming into swarms of glowing butterflies that flew off into space. Reality rippled around us like waves on a pond. "Consider this your final lesson," the boy said. "Earth's children are not to be trifled with. We can unmake your ships, rewrite your memories, and reshape your reality. But we choose not to, because our parents taught us about mercy." The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was General Yax, the mighty problem solver, curled up in a fetal position, whimpering as spectral images of his own childhood danced around him. The greatest military fleet ever assembled, defeated not by weapons, but by the impossible power of human children's imagination. We awoke in a place that shouldn't exist. The walls pulsed with soft light, and the floor seemed to be made of solid moonbeams. I found myself seated at a round table with Dr. Pax and the barely conscious General Yax. Across from us sat 3 humans: Ambassador Parker, a woman in a lab coat, and the red-haired girl from the playground. "Welcome to the Between," Parker said, pouring tea from an impossible teapot that seemed to float on air. "We thought it was time you understood what you're dealing with." Dr. Pax's antenna twitched rapidly as she tried to analyze our surroundings. "This defies all known laws of physics." "That's because you're thinking too small," the woman in the lab coat replied. "I'm Dr. Amanda Blackwood, head of Project Dreamwalker. What you're about to learn is classified beyond any security clearance your civilization has ever conceived." The red-haired girl giggled, and the room rippled like water. "They're scared, Mom. Their minds are so linear." General Yax finally found his voice. "What have you done to my fleet?" "Your ships are fine," Parker assured him. "They're just temporarily misplaced in probability space. Now, please listen carefully. You're about to understand why we were so adamant about protecting our children." Dr. Blackwood pulled up what looked like a holographic display, except it was made of pure starlight. 50 years ago, we discovered something extraordinary about human consciousness. Children, specifically those under 13, exist in a quantum superposition. Their minds aren't fully anchored to conventional reality. "That's absurd," Dr. Pax interrupted. "Consciousness doesn't work that way." The red-haired girl, whose name tag now reads Sarah, waved her hand. Suddenly, we were inside Dr. Pax's memory of her first scientific discovery. Then we were in General Yax's childhood home. Then we were watching the birth of a star. "Reality," Sarah explained, her voice carrying echoes of countless others, "is just the dream that most people agree on. We children haven't learned to limit our dreams yet." Dr. Blackwood continued, "Every human child is born with the ability to perceive and manipulate quantum probabilities. As they grow older, their minds naturally settle into standard spacetime. But before that happens, they can do things that your science would call impossible." "The tea you're drinking," Parker added, "it doesn't exist. The chairs you're sitting on? They're made of pure possibility. The children can reach into the quantum foam of the universe and reshape it at will." General Yax slammed his fist on the table, but it made no sound. "You're saying your spawn are reality-bending weapons?" "No," Sarah said firmly, and for a moment her eyes blazed with starfire. "We're children. We play, we imagine, we dream. The universe plays and dreams with us. The only reason we turned our powers against you is because you threatened us first." Dr. Pax's scientific mind was finally starting to grasp the implications. The synchronization of brain patterns we observed is what happens when children play together, Dr. Blackwood explained. They create consensus realities, shared dreams powerful enough to override the standard laws of physics. We don't fully understand it ourselves, but we know it's tied to the fundamental quantum nature of consciousness. "And now you know why Earth kept this secret," Parker said gravely. "Imagine what would happen if hostile powers learned that our children could literally reshape reality, that they could turn warships into butterflies or make entire armies forget they ever existed." I remembered the playground incident with horrifying clarity. The other children who disappeared. Sarah smiled. "We didn't disappear. We stepped sideways into possibility. It's easy when you haven't forgotten how." "The price of your interference, Doctor." Blackwood continued. is that now we have to take precautions. Your entire civilization will receive a quantum mimetic overlay. You'll maintain your memories of these events, but you'll be physically incapable of taking hostile action against Earth's children ever again. You can't do that, General Yax protested. You can't rewrite the basic nature of an entire civilization. We already have, Sarah said simply. The children of Earth voted on it during recess. It was a unanimous decision. Think of it as a vaccine, Parker suggested, against the disease of trying to exploit our young. The changes are already propagating through your quantum probability states. By the time you return to normal space, it will be impossible for your species to even consider harming a human child. Dr. Pax, ever the scientist, had one final question. Why show us all this? Why not just let us forget? Because someone needs to remember, Sarah replied. Someone needs to carry the warning. The universe is wider and stranger than you ever imagined, and at its heart are the dreams of children. The room began to fade, reality reasserting itself. The last thing I heard was Sarah's voice, echoing across dimensions. Next time you see children playing, remember they're not just playing, they're practicing being gods. When we awoke on our ships, everything was back to normal. Almost. Now, whenever any member of our species sees a human child, they feel an overwhelming instinct to protect them. Not out of fear, but out of a bone-deep understanding that they're witnessing something miraculous and precious. The truth had been revealed, and it had changed us forever. The Galactic Council chambers were in chaos. Not the usual political chaos of shouting representatives and angry demands, but something far more unsettling. Reality itself seemed to be unraveling at the edges. Through the transparent dome, we watched as stars rearranged themselves into impossible patterns. Constellations transformed into the faces of laughing children, then scattered like dandelion seeds in a cosmic wind. They're coming, I announced to the panicked council members. Earth's response is here. Right on cue, every child on every human colony world began to sing. The song transcended space, time, and sanity itself. It was a lullaby that could be heard in dreams, a melody that wrote itself into the quantum fabric of existence. High Chancellor Zara's luminescent tendrils had gone completely dark with fear. What have we done? What have we brought upon ourselves? The answer arrived in the form of a small delegation. Not warships, not armies, but a group of 30 human children walking through space as easily as walking through a park. They didn't need ships or spacesuits. Reality simply adjusted itself to accommodate their presence. Leading them was a boy wearing a spacesuit made of pure starlight. I am Thomas, speaker for the Children's Council, he announced. His voice carried naturally through the vacuum of space, because the laws of physics had apparently decided to take a lunch break. Behind him, a girl in a dress made of nebulae added, "We have deliberated during our last recess period and reached a decision about your civilization's fate." The Galactic Council, the most powerful governing body in known space, found itself being addressed by what appeared to be an elementary school class project. Representative Crocs, ever the diplomat, tried to salvage the situation. Surely we can negotiate. The time for negotiations ended when you sent warships to threaten us, Thomas replied. Several of the children nodded, and suddenly every weapon in galactic space transformed into soap bubbles. Not just the weapons themselves, but the very knowledge of how to make them. Your civilization needs a timeout, declared a small boy with glasses made of comet trails. You're not ready for the kind of power you've been playing with. Before anyone could protest, the children joined hands in a circle. The universe held its breath. Ring around the rosy, they began to sing, and entire solar systems started dancing to their rhythm, pockets full of posies. With each word, the technological level of our civilization regressed by decades. Our antimatter drives became simple fusion engines. Our quantum computers transformed into basic binary systems. Our faster-than-light technology simplified itself to near light speeds. Ashes, ashes. The proudest achievements of our species were being undone by a children's nursery rhyme. But they weren't destroying our technology, they were transforming it into something safer, simpler, more appropriate for our level of cosmic understanding. We all fall down. As the last word echoed across space-time, our mighty galactic civilization found itself reduced to a manageable size. We still had enough technology to maintain our society, but nothing that could threaten Earth or its children. Your civilization will be allowed to advance again, Thomas explained, but only at a pace that matches your spiritual and ethical development. Think of it as cosmic training wheels. One of the council members, a being of pure energy, dared to ask, "How long will this punishment last?" A girl with butterfly wings made of aurora borealis laughed. "It's not a punishment, it's protection. For us and for you. You'll get your toys back when you learn to play nicely with others." Besides, Thomas added with a smile that somehow contained entire universes, time is relative, especially when you know how to fold it like origami. The children began to fade from view, but their presence had permanently altered our reality. They left behind a set of new universal constants, fundamental laws woven into the very structure of space-time. 1. Human children were now recognized by the universe itself as protected entities. 2. Any aggressive action toward Earth or its colonies would result in the aggressor's technology spontaneously turning into candy. 3. The ability to advance beyond our current technological level would require passing regular evaluations by what they called the Playground Council. As a final touch, they transformed the Galactic Council chamber into something resembling a kindergarten classroom, complete with motivational posters showing proper cosmic citizenship behaviors. Remember, Thomas's voice echoed as they departed. The universe is everyone's playground. Learn to share, play fair, and most importantly, nap time is non-negotiable. The children vanished, but their changes remained. Our mighty civilization, which had once spanned galaxies, had been effectively grounded by a group of kids who treated cosmic forces like finger paint. The most humbling part. They had done it all while giggling. 10 cycles have passed since what we now call the Great Timeout. I'm recording this final testimony from my new office in the Galactic Friendship Center, formerly known as the Council's War Room. The walls are covered in children's artwork from 100 different species, including several drawings that casually violate the laws of physics. Our civilization has changed in ways none of us could have imagined. Without our more advanced weapons and tools, we've had to learn something we'd forgotten long ago: how to play nice with others. The humans, particularly their children, have become our teachers. Every planetary system now has what they call a playground, a vast space where young ones from different species can meet and play together. It turns out that when you let children from different worlds play together, they naturally create better solutions than all our advanced AI ever could. Last week I watched a young Crocs and a human child solve an energy crisis by inventing a game called Solar Hopscotch somehow. Their rules for jumping between squares also contain the formula for stable cold fusion. When I asked how they did it, they just shrugged and said it was obvious if you looked at it sideways while standing on your head. Dr. Pax has found a new calling. She now runs the Intergalactic Institute of Playtime Studies. Her latest paper, The Quantum Mechanics of Hide and Seek, has revolutionized our understanding of spatial relationships. Though she still gets twitchy whenever someone mentions butterflies. General Yax? He teaches finger painting to alien diplomats. The therapy sessions helped him discover that he's actually quite good at it. His latest piece, Why Wars Are Silly, hangs in what used to be the Council's main battle planning room. As for me, I serve as Earth's designated storyteller. My job is to travel to different worlds and share what we learned about the true nature of human children. Most species don't believe me at first. They laugh and ask how something so powerful could come in such small packages. That's usually when Sarah shows up. She hasn't aged a day since our first encounter, though she assures me she's growing up at exactly the rate she wants to. She demonstrates by aging backward and forward, until whoever's doubting the story gets the point. The children have kept their promise about letting us advance technologically, but only after we demonstrate proper understanding. Last month we regained the right to use quantum computers, but only after every scientist in our civilization passed a test called Playing Well with Others 101. Some of our more ambitious leaders have grumbled about the restrictions, wondering if we could find a way around them. That thinking stopped quickly when someone tried to build a forbidden weapon. By the next morning, every military facility in our space had been transformed into a bouncy castle. The message was clear: the children were still watching. The humans find our situation hilarious, of course. Ambassador Parker, now retired, told me over tea last week that Earth had tried to warn us. "We literally told you to leave our kids alone," he said. "It's not our fault you had to learn the hard way that they're basically reality's admin users." The most profound change has been in how we view children, not just human ones, but our own as well. We've discovered that all young ones have a touch of that same reality-bending potential. They just need to be taught how to access it safely. Under human guidance, we're learning to nurture these abilities rather than suppress them. To any civilization that might be considering what we once did, I offer this warning: Earth's children are not simply powerful. They're not merely dangerous. They are the universe's way of reminding us that reality is more playground than battlefield. If you value your existence as you know it, leave them alone. Don't study them. Don't threaten them. And whatever you do, don't make them angry. Because while human adults might show mercy, their children will simply rewrite your entire civilization into something more fun to play with. I know this because every morning I wake up to find my breakfast has been turned into ice cream. My official protest forms transform into paper airplanes. And sometimes, when I look out my window, I see Sarah and her friends playing hopscotch between the stars. They wave at me sometimes, these impossible children who grounded an entire civilization. Their laughter echoes across space and time, a reminder that in the end, the universe belongs to those who know how to play with it. End report. EPS. If you're reading this and the words start rearranging themselves into funny shapes, or if your computer suddenly turns into a kitten, don't panic. It just means they're reading over your shoulder. Wave hello, be polite, and remember the most important rule in the galaxy. Leave Earth's children alone. They're not being difficult, they're just playing. And the universe is their playground.